Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Good evening. Welcome in. Thanks for being with us on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and live in living color on our video stream on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. Brendan Brzezinski is here. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a bit. We got 3 hours of sports talk to get to, with every day and every hour bringing us closer to next Sunday in Super Bowl 59 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the Chiefs, 1 win shy of NFL immortality, becoming the first team to win 3 consecutive Super Bowl championships. Obviously, we'll talk plenty of football on the program today and talk some Jayhawks. We'll do what is wrong with you. We've got a jam-packed 3 hours of sports talk to get into today. And we're glad you're along for the ride. We want to hear from you throughout the show today. The text line is open, 785-272-9429, 785-272-9429 to text the show. Also, if you are watching on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Subscribe to the channel today. Thanks to our YouTube viewers who made yesterday's episode of 580 Sports Talk the most watched single episode of the show since Jake LeBon's retirement show. And unfair to judge any other show on the standards of that particular show. So,
yeah, that one brought back all the superstars.
Yeah, that was the night of the network stars throughout. So you were tuning in to see all your old favorites old and new. Again,
most watched in over a year.
Yes. So great thanks to all of you who tuned in on the YouTube. If you are watching the video stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Remember, we get to 800 subscribers. Brendan and I are going to arm wrestle each other on camera during the show. If that's not impetus to subscribe, get your friends, get your family members, get your enemies to subscribe, then I don't know what is. But if you are watching on the YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, there's a live chat feature in the web browser and on the mobile app, and you can jump on into the live chat and interact with us and interact with your fellow listeners throughout the program today as well. However you are consuming the program, thanks for making us a part of your afternoon. We got a lot of questions to answer regarding the Chiefs as we start to look ahead towards Chiefs-Eagles, the rematch in Super Bowl 59. Questions that include, how would you rank the AFC Championship games that the Chiefs have won in this current era? There are 5 of them now. It's enough to count on one full hand. How would you rank them? Which one is the best? Which one is the most satisfying? Which one, if you could only take the DVD of one of them to a deserted island, would you want to watch over and over again? We'll ask that question. We'll also ask whether or not Saquon Barkley represents a final boss, if you will. Those of you who play video games, there's always the final boss. The last boss you have to defeat. Like on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, it's Mike Tyson, right? Who is it in Bowser in one of the Super Mario Brothers games, right? Like Bowser's the final boss,
yep.
Or Wario is the final boss. There's always a final boss. Saquon Barkley represents something like the final boss that the Chiefs have to defeat if they are going to win, indeed, a 3rd straight Super Bowl. Is he the one guy that may be the most terrifying skill player that the Chiefs have had to contend with as they head to a 5th Super Bowl in 6 years? Another Eagles question we'll get to. Is Jalen Hurts good? Because I think that there are layers to the answer to that question. And it was something I was listening to another podcast and talking about how, if you look at the Eagles, the only thing you would consider a weakness or not a relative strength, because they're really good. I mean, they're awesome up front. Obviously, Barkley's a beast. Their pass catchers are really good. Their defense, they may not have as much pass rush punch as they did 2 years ago. It's still a really good pass rush. They're good. They're great on the interior with Jalen Carter. Their linebackers are outstanding. Their defensive backfield is as good or better than it was 2 years ago. The only thing that you wouldn't consider a relative strength is the quarterback, but I also don't think you'd consider him a weakness necessarily. And you may disagree, but we'll talk a little bit about Jalen Hurts and if he is a strength or a weakness for the Eagles entering Super Bowl 59. And also a question that we didn't really get a chance to get to yesterday, but it was in our show notes and we never talked about it. And it jumped out to me and I held it pseudo-intentionally for a broader discussion. Because I think right here and right now, this is the best version of Patrick Mahomes we've ever seen. And I think that you can dispute that. And I think there are compelling reasons to dispute my claim. But I will stake that claim that right here and right now, going into this Super Bowl, is the best we have ever seen Patrick Mahomes. Or at least the hardest to beat. And that might be a different calculation. But I'll explain what I mean a little bit later on. Brennan and I will have a little back and forth on that coming up later in the show. So lots of football to get to on the program today. We'll talk some KU athletics. Michael Swain will join us for Jayhawk Weekly, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. KU's back on the home hardwood tonight, taking on UCF. We'll preview that. We'll also talk about the continued success. It's no longer a fluke. Kansas is dominating in-state recruiting for the upcoming class of 26, in a way that I don't know that we've seen KU plant their flag in in-state recruiting in a long time. So we're going to get to that with Michael Swain as well. Why is now the time for KU that they've been able to capitalize and keep some of the best talent in the state of Kansas, not just in the state, but heading to Lawrence, where for many, many years, those players were going to Manhattan. We'll get into that with Michael Swain, Jayhawk Weekly, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, plus all the other things you've come to know and love from a Tuesday edition of the show. We got our sports headlines. We'll do What Is Wrong With You. Random Question Tuesday is coming up. Your text to 785-272-9429 and your comments in the chat room on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it. 5 AFC Championship victories now for the Chiefs. 2019, beat the Titans 35-24. What's the one thing you remember from that game?
The run.
Yeah, that's kind of the signature moment.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that is one of the 2 or 3 signature moments of Patrick Mahomes' career.
I would agree.
Also, maybe Jim Nance's career.
Yeah, it was a great Jim Nance call.
Great call. Man, we need to get him a new partner. That's a discussion for the offseason.
I actually think Romo's like, I understood that there was backlash to Tony Romo, and I did think that he was getting a little veering into the lane of self-parody a little bit, but I actually think he's course-corrected a little bit this year. I thought Romo this year's been a little better.
I think my biggest problem with Tony Romo is that for as good as Jim Nance is meeting the moment, Tony Romo is equally bad. Like, shut up.
Yeah,
let Jim finish.
Yeah, he does not have great feel for that. It ruined the call at the end of last year's Super Bowl. Paul in the YouTube comments also shouts out the touchdown pass to Sammy Watkins at the end of that game. Just a missile down the field that caught Watkins in stride. And that was the moment at which the game was functionally over.
Yeah. See, my preferred Mahomes to Watkins pass, the one that is etched in my mind, was 2 weeks later. When
in the Super Bowl,
Hammy Watkins washed up Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
God, what an awesome moment.
Yeah, I was a little conflicted about that one, but I do. No, I remember that big play in that game for sure.
I'm a big Sherm hater, so I was living, and I'm honestly kind of a Watkins hater too. But that moment, I levitated. That was awesome.
Sherm's my guy. Sherm's one of my favorite players of all time. That was hard.
He was a hell of a player.
He was great player. That was past his prime for sure. 2020, Chiefs beat the Bills 38-24. I remember very little about this football game.
So I remember one thing, because that was the same day that the Packers lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the early game. One day after David Bakhtiari tore his ACL.
Uh-huh.
And I was just so distraught. I remember one thing, and that was Josh Allen getting sacked and then throwing the ball at a Chief.
Alex Okafor.
Alex Okafor.
Yeah.
Yes. That is the only thing I remember from that entire game is Josh Allen throwing a ball at Alex Okafor.
I remember McCole Hardman fumbling a punt.
That could be any game.
Yeah. No, this was pretty deep in the territory. I think it was deep in the Kansas City territory, and it helped them score, if I remember right. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. No, it was the first quarter of that game. It set up the touchdown pass that made it 9-0 Buffalo. I'm having a look at the play-by-play to remember anything about this game. And then I remember the Chiefs ripping off touchdowns on their next 3 drives like it was the easiest thing in the whole entire world.
Yeah. That really was Team of Destiny stuff. That the first season, the 2019 season.
You can absolutely argue that the 2020 Chiefs were a better team than, like, I'd say they were better than last year's Chiefs. Like, you could play 2020 versus 2023. I would pick 2020 to win that game.
I agree.
I would maybe pick 2020 to, I don't know if they beat this year's team. It's close. I might need some time to chew on that a little bit. But no, that 2020 team was awesome. They just ran out bodies on the offensive line at the worst possible time. The third AFC Championship victory, 2022, Chiefs 23, Bengals 20. Mahomes on one leg, playing out of his mind in the second half. The scramble, the late hit by Joseph Osai, the long field goal by Butker at the horn. 2023, the road win over the Ravens last season. You had L'Jarius Sneed's punch out of Zay Flowers at the goal line. Deion Bush, of all people, intercepting Lamar Jackson in the end zone. And Mahomes going over the top to MVS to seal it. I think what like the average fan remembers about that game is just the Ravens not running the football for the better part of 60 minutes.
That, in my opinion, is the single most lopsided 17-10 game in NFL history.
No, I think there's something to that.
Like, the Chiefs only scored 17 points. That, honestly, they didn't score in the second half. There were 3 total second half points. That game to me was like a precursor to this year's Chiefs. What is the minimum we need to do to win a football game? We are going to do it, and we are going to win that football game. Like, that's what that was. The Chiefs were the better team that entire game. The Ravens had that one big play, the Zay Flowers touchdown, and that was it. Like, I never once was like, oh, yeah, yikes, I don't know. Travis Kelce's touchdown is probably the lasting image of that game, other than a bunch of puzzled camera shots of Todd Monken. Because that was an awesome throw and catch. First quarter, right? I have the play-by-play.
Yeah.
First quarter. Really, really good throw and catch. And Zay Flowers fumbling. That's the other one that I'm reminded of from that game.
The great play by L'Jarius Sneed at the goal line. And then, of course, Sunday, Chiefs beat the Bills 32-29. Time will tell. We don't have enough remove, perhaps, to have a signature moment yet from that game, but I suspect it will be the 4th down stop and the Mahomes touchdown run to give them the lead. The fact that Mahomes rushed for 2 touchdowns in the game for the first time in his career. Anyhow, if you had to rank them, which is the one that stands above the rest? Which is the AFC Championship game victory of the 5 that you would rank as? And best is subjective here. And we want to hear from you as well in the YouTube live chat and on the text line, 785-272-9429. Which of those 5 games is your favorite or the best of those 5 AFC title games?
Okay, so I think I would have different answers for favorite and best. I think the best was 2020 against the Bills. Like, the Chiefs beat their ass the entire game.
Best game performance by the Chiefs?
I think that one was the single best, like, the Chiefs will not be stopped game. And that's the offensive line got more hurt during that game, which obviously would go on to spell doom in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later. But it wasn't exactly a full unit at the start of the game. And the Chiefs were just dominant. They kicked their ass in that game. I think that was the single best championship. I mean, I came out of that game and I said on these airwaves, like, oh yeah, Chiefs by 35. I believe I said my final score prediction for the Super Bowl was 35-14. It did not end that way, unfortunately.
Right, guys.
Wrong side won in that one, but no, the Chiefs just destroyed them in that game. A good Bills team and a good Josh Allen season. that I would say, I think was the best performance. As far as favorite goes, I would make an argument for either 19 or 22. I don't know which one I'd pick. Maybe 19, because again, it just felt like Team of Destiny. Like every single time, the Texans game they fell behind, in the Titans game they fell behind, and there was just always an answer. It truly felt like there was nothing anyone could do. You could give anyone as much of a handicap, as much of a head start as you wanted. It's like the freeze at Braves games, or better local reference, the Bobby Witt Jr. race at the K, the third inning, when they put the little video of Bobby Witt on the scoreboard in the outfield.
Yeah.
They give someone a 50-yard head start trying to race around the warning track, and no one ever wins because Bobby Witt is that fast. He always beats the fans. That's what that felt like for the Chiefs. Like, okay, yeah, down 14, down 10 to start the game, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're going to win anyway. I mean, they trailed to start the game and won by double figures. Like, that it just felt so unbeatable. It felt like you were watching magic happen, truthfully.
Yeah, no, it was so cathartic for every generation of Chiefs fans, because most had never experienced that before. So that's like, I think, the most cathartic and maybe the most special, that you never forget your first idea. Mm-hmm. And they did. They were behind. They weren't just behind 10-0. They were behind 17-7 in that game.
Yeah.
The Titans did whatever they wanted on offense in the first 3 drives of that game. And then the defense just said, no more.
Well, and, funny enough, if we were going to say like best Chiefs performance, favorite game, best overall game, I think are 3 different ones, because I think the game 2 days ago was the best like football game of the 5.
So my answer as to which one I rank number 1, though, is the win over the Bengals. It's the 2022 game. And I think that's number 1 for me because it made everything else that followed it possible. Imagine if the Chiefs don't win that game. Live in a world where the Chiefs are 0-2 against Joe Burrow at home in AFC Championship games. What does that mean for how the team constructs itself moving forward? What does it mean for how readily they're able to get back to the level that they got back to? That was the one they most had to have. That was the one that has made everything coming after it. The Super Bowl win that year, the Super Bowl win the following year, and now this historic return to the Super Bowl for a 5th time in 6 years with a chance at the three-peat. None of that happens if they don't beat the Bengals in that game, because it was starting to feel, the Chiefs were on the verge of feeling to the Bengals the way the Bills feel to the Chiefs right now, where, like, obviously we're close, but man, we can't get over the hump on these guys. Remember, it wasn't just the 2021 AFC title game. There had been 2 other regular season meetings where the Chiefs had lost by 1 possession. And the Chiefs had like positive win probability in all 3 of those games in the fourth quarter and couldn't get it done. So if they had not found a way to beat Cincinnati again, then that team's the one that's got a hex on you. And maybe the Chiefs are in a position that the Bills find themselves in vis-a-vis the Chiefs right now. Winning that game was the most necessary. Okay. And Mahomes was on a bad leg, and a lot lined up for the Bengals, and it just didn't matter. The Chiefs found a way. Butker made the clutch kick. Obviously, the penalty was massive. Nobody disputes that one. Even the most online brain poisoned person in the world with regards to ref talk could not dispute that Joseph Osai hit Patrick Mahomes well out of bounds on the play, and those 15 extra yards giving Butker the room to kick the field goal.
Yep.
But that's the one for me. Trevor in the YouTube comments agrees, says Bengals is my favorite, needed that one so bad. Christopher's with you, 2019 at the top because it's their first ever AFC Championship game. Paul has the same 1-2 as you, 2019 and 2022 being the top 2. Vance also says the 2022 game. I think that might have even been for drama. That was as good a football game as the one we saw 2 days ago too. Like, I need more time to sit with the 2024 game to historically contextualize it for sure. But I'm comfortable with the 2022 Bengals game at the top of my rankings there. I go that one. I go with the Titans one. The 2023 one meant a lot because remember the narrative that, oh, Mahomes, can he do it on the road? He never had to go do it on the road. And then they won back-to-back road playoff games. That was also the only time where the Chiefs have played a playoff game where I felt like the team they were playing was better than they were. That's the only time throughout this entire run that I have seen the Chiefs, even in the games that they've lost, even Super Bowl 55, the 2018 title game against the Patriots, whichever. The only time I have felt going into a game that the Chiefs are playing a team that's better than they are was that game in Baltimore, and they found a way to win it anyway. And so that one will always
controlled the game.
Yes, we're in control of it virtually start to finish. So that one's third for me. This one is fourth for now, but this one has a chance to vault up those lists because, let's be honest, if that's the one that gets them into the game, that gets them to immortality, that gets them to 3 straight Super Bowls, history will look even more kindly upon that performance in that particular game. But do want to hear from you folks. How do you rank them? What's the best AFC Championship game win for the Chiefs, or your favorite, or rank them however you want to rank them? But we want to see your thoughts. Get them in on the YouTube chat. Get them in on the text line, 785-272-9429. We'll take a quick timeout. Another bit of historical context in the next question. Is Saquon Barkley the toughest final boss the Chiefs have faced yet? We'll discuss. We got Random Question Tuesday coming up. Michael Swain joins us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly. We got a jam-packed 3 hours, and we're just getting started on 580 Sports Talk. Couple of more thoughts from the text, or rather from the live chat, our YouTube stream. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. Clayton says, my favorite AFC Championship win for the Chiefs was the first one, hands down. I was there, was well into adulthood before I saw them actually have postseason success. Yeah, Like, I understand that the sentimental value of that one is probably always going to be the highest. There's no replacing what it felt like to get to the Super Bowl for the first time in 50 years. At least you better hope not, because that would mean you go 50 years again in your lifetime between Chiefs Super Bowl appearances. I would bet against that. I would bet against that being the case, at least for those of us who were alive to see them break the 50-year drought in the first place. Wanted to get to this here on 580 Sports Talk here, 580 WIBW FM 104.9. This is the fifth Super Bowl the Chiefs have been to. And the quarterbacks that the Chiefs have faced, will you write this list out? It's unbelievable. Jimmy Garoppolo, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, and Jalen Hurts again. It's not exactly murderer's row, right?
No.
As far as quarterbacks go. And, like, obviously there's Brady, and that's who Mahomes is chasing. It's the only other person at this point with an argument, a claim to stake to the GOAT conversation. Quick aside, did it make anybody else laugh to see Tyreek Hill refer to Mahomes on social media in a comment? I don't know who he was commenting to, replying to on Twitter, but he referred to Mahomes as GOAT of our era, which is not really how the phrase GOAT works. GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time. So what you are saying is he's the greatest of all time of our era.
He called him the gooey, the greatest of our era. He called him the gooey.
Sure.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not really, you know what? I don't want to say anything mean. You tried, Tyreek.
Yeah, he did. It was a
I'm gonna take the high road.
It was a nice thought.
Yes.
It was a nice thing to have in your head to say about your former teammate.
Yes.
Anyhow, and Brady obviously is that guy. He played well in Super Bowl 55, but like even considering where he was in his career at that point, I don't know that we've ever gone into a Super Bowl where the opposing quarterback was the guy where you were the most afraid of, or the aspect of the opponent that you were most afraid to let beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that every opponent the Chiefs have had has had a skill player that fits that description. I don't know that there was that guy necessarily on the Buccaneers. That was an ensemble cast. It turned out that the thing that you had to worry about the most was the defensive line, and they ended up wrecking the game. And Mike Remmers, your Super Bowl least valuable player trophy, is in the mail. That 49er team with Garoppolo had some nice pieces. They had, young George Kittle, young Debo. The Eagles had Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown 2 seasons ago. Last year, obviously, you were dealing with Christian McCaffrey about the height of his powers in the offense, maybe built best to exploit his abilities, along with a prime George Kittle and a prime Debo Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that there has been one guy going into a Super Bowl where you've looked at and said, oh, boy, the Chiefs going to have hands full with that guy. What are the Chiefs going to do with that guy? And I think Saquon Barkley is that guy. In a video game level, you would say he is the final boss. That's my thought. I don't know if you're in lockstep with me on that, but on his current form, where it feels like he can score a touchdown anytime he touches the ball, I wonder if he's the most terrifying that any Super Bowl opposing player has been just by himself.
So are we specifically saying offensive players?
I think for the sake of the discussion, yes.
Okay.
But if there is a defensive individual player that you think qualifies here.
The one player who comes to mind, I wonder if you can guess who it is, comes from Super Bowl 55.
55?
55. Didn't play a whole lot leading into the game. Had food poisoning, in fact, the weekend of the game. The Chiefs' second string of Stefan Wisniewski a year before retirement and Austin Ryder versus Vita Vea.
Okay.
Like Vita Vea, we always talk about Chris Jones, even when he doesn't get sacks, he wrecks a game because you either, best case scenario is you're just using extra resources and you're weakening everywhere else to slow him down. Vita Vea was like that in that game. He was a monster.
If we're including defensive players in the conversation, I would submit the Super Bowl 54 version of Nick Bosa. Maybe less so the Super Bowl 58 version.
Yeah, that was a big talking point in that game.
Yeah, I think he was better. And certainly both in Super Bowl 55 and in 57, there was lots of talk about the defensive lines as an ensemble. In Super Bowl 55, Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett in particular, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who else was on that defensive line? They just came at Mahomes in waves.
In waves, yeah.
And there was nothing that Stefan Wisniewski and Austin Ryder and Mike Remmers could really fairly be expected to do about it. Super Bowl 57, rather famously, you had the team with the most sacks in NFL history in the regular season held to 0 by the Chiefs offensive line and bad turf. Don't let the Eagles fans in your life forget to remind you that the turf was bad and that's why they lost that game. But
so that's where I would go if we were saying anyone that might be at the top. The answer is probably yes. It is probably yes for Saquon Barkley, who is awesome regardless. He is a great player. My one hang up, and the reason I am not going to say 100% with conviction, Saquon Barkley this season is averaging 2.33 yards before contact per run. So you are guaranteed, before he even hits one of his own linemen, you're guaranteed second and less than 8. That's before he even has to do any work. Like, this offensive line has opened. Now, in the open field, scary. Like, I am... The one thing about this game that does make me sweat a little bit is the idea of Nick Bolton trying to tackle Saquon Barkley in space. That gives me sweats a little bit. But the line makes the job, the start of the play, which is like the biggest part of a run play, right? It's the start of it. It's, are you going to run into your own guy's ass? Are you going to get your gap plugged by the defensive line? Can you bounce it to the edge, or do you get cut off by one of the linebackers or a safety? Like, at the line of scrimmage in the trenches is what makes a run play.
Right.
And the Eagles are just bulldozing everybody, which is why the answer, again, is probably yes. But also, he is getting help like no one else in any of these games has. Even Brady, with prime Godwin and prime Evans as his top 2 receivers and other talent around them.
Functional Gronk, yeah.
Like,
HGH'd out of his mind.
Yeah, zooted Rob Gronkowski. Like, they didn't even have a weapon like Saquon Barkley has with his offensive line. So I think you are right, but I don't think it is all just because of Saquon, because their offensive line is just so crazy good. So maybe the answer is the offensive line of the Eagles is the biggest worry.
It could be. Yeah,
is the final boss.
They're gonna have to win in the trenches, the Chiefs, in a way that they have at times. We talked about it in the lead up to this weekend's game. They have at times the second half of the season struggled a little bit. It's not just the guys up front too. It's your force defenders. It's your your edge setters. You have to be able to turn plays back inside where Bolton, instead of chasing, can clean up.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
You don't want Bolton chasing in the open field. You want him filling his gap with the runner forced back into Bolton, where he is a sure tackler and he can clean up. Think that play at the end of the Atlanta game. The fourth down run that sealed the game, where the defensive lineman shot the gap and forced, was it Algier on that fourth down carry? Did they not give it to Bijan Robinson? I don't remember the particulars of who carried the ball in that final play of the game. I just remember that was Nick Bolton clean up on aisle 5. Like, that's what you want if you're the Chiefs. We'll take a quick time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, it's time for Random Question Tuesday. That's next, 580 WIBW. Time for Random Question Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer with you. Brendan, you've got a random question you've been sitting on for a few days now.
Yes. So I wanted to ask the two of you. This was really inspired by Bob Uecker passing away a couple of weeks ago, one of the greatest voices in baseball broadcasting history. What is the sports broadcast call that has meant the most to you? I'm not necessarily saying what is the best one of all time. Honestly, the best football call of all time, I think, is Keith Jackson calling the Colorado Hail Mary. I think, like, the word touchdown has never been said more beautifully than it was in that moment by Keith Jackson. But the call that means, like, the most to you or your specific fan base the most, what is the best, the biggest one of your lifetime? Because I saw Brewers fans and just baseball fans in general sharing all sorts of them when Bob Uecker passed away, and some of the incredible stories that, of course, he would tell during broadcasts. So I was curious for you guys and your favorite teams, what would that include?
I've got two right off the bat.
All right, let's hear them.
I mean, they're pretty easy to decipher which ones are which. The Nationals from I can't remember the exact quote. It's like from the depths of a 19-31 season to a World Series champion. The Nationals have clinched the World Series. That's their radio broadcaster. And then now I'm forgetting the Capitals one, but basically, like, you know, winning a Stanley Cup has not been something they had done until 2018. So it was an amazing call.
Yeah, that's one that I from 96, the Avalanche radio announcer Mike Haynes. Hey, Colorado fans, how great does it feel? Because it was the first major sports championship in Denver sports history. Certainly remember that one. Also remember, I used to be able to quote it, and I'm in a little brain fog today, so I don't think I can get through all of it. But Mike Mayock's description of Marshawn Lynch's touchdown run, I think it was Tom Hammond on the call with Mike Mayock on NBC.
Yes,
when Marshawn Lynch ran for that touchdown against the Saints in the wild card playoffs in 2010, and I remember Hammond's call being something along the lines of, "Look at this run! What a run! Marshawn Lynch, he's dancing his way for a touchdown!" And then the partial description from Mike Mayock: runs through Sharper, runs through Adell. Get off me, he says to Tracy Porter. That became iconic. Yes,
in a video game or in what's that guy? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the guy who did the Greg Jennings video.
Yes,
yes.
So, those would be two that I could think of right off the bat that are significant to the teams that I grew up rooting for.
I got the quote from the Capitals. It's Eller for the draw. And the words that the DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974. The Capitals are the Stanley Cup champions for the first time. Like, just those moments, you know?
Go ahead.
A submission from the text line here for the 785.
Please send it. Yes, this is a full.
Yes, the broadcast calls that you can still quote, if not in full, then in most part, because they were formative moments for your favorite teams. Bob Davis in 1988 from 785.
Oh, yeah.
All you from around the Sunflower State, get up. These Jayhawks are national champions.
Yep, that's a great one. Everything about Bob's call of Mario's Miracle, it is so funny if you watch like a YouTube compilation of that championship game, and they'll put together Nance's call next to Bob Davis's call, and Jim Nance mentions, oh, Collins nearly loses the ball, gets it to Chalmers. Bob is yelling, Collins got pushed. One is the objective, one is the fan. It's awesome. Mine is not from the Cubs World Series year, although Joe Buck's call on TV is just perfect of the final out of the 2016 World Series. But the 2015 divisional playoffs, Cubs beat the Cardinals, which that alone, extremely meaningful. Pat Hughes, Hall of Famer, Cubs radio voice for decades and decades now, right before the final out when Hector Rondon threw a strikeout to clinch the series, said, "I wish all of you could be here right now." And then fastball strike three. I mean, just one of the most emotional moments I've ever had with a sporting event. It was just magical. That's number one for me, very, very easily.
I've got one more. I can't remember the broadcaster, but I know that Brendan is not fond of the CBS Sports broadcaster.
Carter Blackburn.
Yes. In San Diego, it's a March miracle for Marshall when Marshall beat Wichita State.
Oh yeah, I remember.
That'll be something that sits in my head.
Were you and I watching that underneath a in a press area somewhere? Where were we at?
Yes,
was that Wichita?
We were in Wichita.
Yeah,
that was shortly after I spilled an entire plate of food under our table.
Yeah, you did.
That sounds.
There was a curtain in front of us with the table right in front of it. And I don't know if I bumped my computer and bumped the plate or what. I spilled a whole plate of tacos on the floor and tried to pass it off like it was not me. And yes, we watched the very end of that Marshall game.
A submission from the 615 for Max Falkenstein in 1988. The dream is real, still immortalized in the pregame
forever
montage
forever
at Allen Fieldhouse. Also from the 785, Kevin Harlan when the Chiefs went back to the Super Bowl and won it. 50 years, a lifetime.
He's so good.
1982 World Series.
He could call the 3P too.
Another one from the 785, the 1982 World Series. Not the World Series. This would have been 80. Was it 80? The Go Crazy Folks call from Jack Buck. I thought that was Ozzie Smith off Tom Niedenfuhr. That was the 85 championship series.
85 NLCS.
Yeah, 85 championship series. That was Ozzie's home run.
Great call.
Niedenfuhr. Yeah. Corks one down the line. It may go. That's another one you can quote by memory. Paul in the YouTube live chat has a tie between Mitch Holthus's now iconic "You can doubt the Chiefs." It's like a wrestling promo at this. It's like The Rock winding up for "If you smell." At this point.
Well, I think he now adds "You can hate the Chiefs," right? Because there wasn't much hate before.
I think
he emphasizes the hate.
Disrespect. And then also Kevin Harlan. I'm calling both games.
Yeah, the fact
I watched that at a sports bar. That was so funny.
That is incredible. That's like, oh man, the
about
fact
the
that
game where
the Chiefs is just phenomenal.
That was. I remember watching that live. Like, how is this possible? But Kevin Harlan's a great broadcaster.
He's the greatest of all time.
And another one for me. I always thought, fans in this area are fortunate to have listened to some iconic broadcast, like truly iconic broadcasters. Like they don't put everybody's home broadcaster in the rafters like Mac Falkenstein's in the rafters at Allen Fieldhouse. Like they don't do that. You don't end up with a run of play-by-play guys that goes Kevin Harlan to Mitch Holthus or Mitch Holthus to Wyatt Thompson. Like that doesn't happen. Denny Matthews calling every Royals game for a billion years. Like this stuff is not normal.
No.
And it is a privilege that we have in this area to listen to some truly iconic voices. Boy, did Denny Matthews nail the call of the 85 World Series.
Yes, he did.
Motley going back. No outs to go. He had been doing the countdown for the entire second half of the game. And finally, when there were no more outs to record, no outs to go.
For what it's worth as well. And hopefully Denny does it for a long, long time beyond the upcoming seasons. I think Jake Eisenberg is great. I think he does such a good job. Dude clearly loves baseball. Royals fans, you're very lucky. Kansas City fans, you're lucky.
I hope he sticks around. I hope that I have a feeling that if he sticks around in Kansas City, that will be a voice that my son's generation will associate with baseball, because I think he's young, he's energetic, and I think he's really, really good.
May I hijack the rest of the segment?
Yes,
because I have another one that's come up. We got to go quicker on this one because we're up against a break. Similar sports broadcasting question. Maybe not who is the biggest, like the guy you look up to and whatnot before, but who is the guy who you've taken the most from, or woman, I suppose, the broadcaster you've taken the most from in your broadcasting calls?
That would be Washburn University alumnus Jerry Schemmel, who did Denver Nuggets games for a long time, still does Colorado Rockies games on the radio. The reason I can do a one-man basketball call, without a color analyst, and I'm grateful to have such a great color analyst in Larry Latimer for my high school games, but doing a solo basketball broadcast has always come naturally to me because I listened to Jerry Schemmel do it for so many years. And when you hear me say bullseye, that's been stolen.
Do you have one, like someone who use their borrowed catchphrase or anything?
I wouldn't say catchphrase, but I just find myself going back to saying the same thing. Setting up the broadcast is like the first broadcast I listened to when I was in college radio. He does, us on the side now for like high school and stuff, but Adam Rogers, who went to Marshall, and it just say like the way that you set up, like I'm here doing this with the like alongside me, like just those kind of things. I find myself
the scene setter. Yeah.
Yes. The scene setter stuff, or like when we're coming back from break.
For me, like it's usually your hometown guy, right? Like Jerry Schemmel doing Nuggets games and Marshall grad and all of that. For me, the two that influenced me the most, Pat Hughes, who does Cubs games, who's greatest ever in my opinion. I've probably used the most things from my beloved Neil Funk, though. There's people who maybe didn't love Neil Funk as much as Bulls fans did. I loved Neil Funk when he was doing games. And I bring out a number of things every broadcast that Neil Funk used to say during the Bulls heyday, or when I was a kid and loved the Bulls. I use a lot.
I will say, whenever I do baseball, not very often anymore, but I would pick up "See You Later," which is Bob Carpenter, national broadcaster.
Absolutely. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk next. Wrapping up this first hour of 580 Sports Talk. Gang's all here. Dan, Brendan, Spencer. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we got What Is Wrong With You coming up, of course. Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain of Fog.net. He'll join us. We'll talk about an impressive run KU is having in football recruiting. Got another well-thought-of commitment just since we've been doing the show today out of Platte County, Missouri. Big tight end has committed to KU. So Lance and his staff are on a roll right now for the class of 26.
Yep. I saw a few guys at the game on Saturday.
Yeah, a bunch of recruits were there on Saturday. Texas wide receivers in the class now. Defensive linemen from Oklahoma signed up within the last 24 hours. The local recruiting is crazy. Well, I mean, it's genuinely shocking.
We'll talk plenty about that, and we'll also get to KU hoops as they prepare to take on UCF tonight. But first, coming up to start the 4 o'clock hour, is this the best version of Patrick Mahomes we've ever seen? I will tell you why I think the answer to that question is yes when we start the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk.
sex offender is under arrest following a stabbing in Arkansas City. Police were called to the 1200 block of West Oklahoma Avenue and found a 40-year-old woman suffering from stab wounds. 54-year-old Sean Boydston was arrested at a nearby home and booked on charges including attempted second-degree murder. This is Kansas Information Network News.
RMDs, estate planning. When do I take Social Security? If these questions have your head spinning, be sure to listen to the Retirement Income Hour with Mark Falter. Mark will talk about these and other topics to help you have a stress-free retirement. Remember, in retirement, it's all about income. The Retirement Income Hour with Mark Falter can be heard every Sunday morning at 8. Investment advisory services offered through the American Wealth Advisory Group, SEC registered investment advisory firm.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
Retired or retiring soon? How much money do you need to live comfortably? Retirement Planners of America is here for you. Would you like to have financial peace of mind? Here's how. Step 1, find out the amount of money you'll need to retire. Step 2, have a plan to get there. Step 3, make sure that plan can take advantage of market gains but protect you from market losses. Discover how to do all three with a free consultation at 800-508-6108. That's 800-508-6108.
All investments involve risk, including losses. Past performance does not guarantee future results.
Scattered cloudiness around this evening and into the overnight hours. Our low quickly falling into the mid to upper 20s. And then we're rebounding up to the low 50s by later on Wednesday. Should be a beautiful day with plenty of sun. Next one system creeping in. A lot of clouds with it Wednesday night. And some scattered rain showers forming after midnight. Temperatures are staying at or just above freezing. It's a better chance for rain by Thursday afternoon into Thursday night with an isolated storm or high mid to upper 40s. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Ramon from the Capitol Federal Weather Center.
Stay connected online at 580wibw.com.
Let's get it. Hour number 2 on a Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580wibw.com. And we're streaming our video live on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. The Power Trio's all in the building. Dan Lucero, Brendan Rosinski, and Spencer Dupuis kicking it with you until 6 o'clock tonight. We sure appreciate you being along, however you're listening or watching the show today. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for making 580 Sports Talk a part of your Tuesday afternoon. Jayhawk, .net, 24/7 Sports Network will join us at the bottom of this hour for Jayhawk Weekly. We do it every Tuesday on the program. Get Michael's perspective on all things Jayhawks. Look forward to that as always. Got a lot of 580 Sports Talk headlines to get to later on. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. I'm fascinated to see what the consensus is, not just here in this room, here among us, but be curious. We throw that one out to the text line, throw that one out to the live chat. What is the consensus on Jalen Hurts? Because I think I'm probably higher on Hurts than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
I was certainly the high man on Hurts when we did our preseason quarterback rankings. But, like, what does low on Hurts look like, I guess, is my question. And what can be reasonably expected of Hurts as he prepares for a second-time quarterback the Eagles in the Super Bowl? Like, you say what you will about Jalen Hurts. The man has now been to 2 more Super Bowls than Lamar Jackson, 2 more Super Bowls than Josh Allen, and 1 more Super Bowl than Joe Burrow.
That's true.
If he were in the AFC, he'd probably meet the same fate. But, sometimes, you get the opportunity to be placed in the, Every generation's got a Stan Humphries, right?
Uh-huh.
Or man, who were some other bums that lost Super Bowls as starting quarterbacks? Because there was no real competition in the conference. Like, who is some of those AFC starting quarterbacks?
Neil O'Donnell.
Yeah, there you go. Neil O'Donnell.
The worst Super Bowl performance of all time.
Yeah.
Like, historically bad. They didn't even bring him back.
No.
They led them to a Super Bowl. He started all year, led them to a Super Bowl, and then in the offseason, they said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks.
Because he threw the ball to Larry Brown like Larry Brown was his wide receiver one. And Larry Brown was, in fact, like the third best corner on the Dallas Cowboys.
This is a hilarious bit from his Wikipedia page. During the game, O'Donnell threw one touchdown pass of 6 yards to Yancey Thigpen and completed 28 of 49 passes. Infamously, he threw 2 nearly identical interceptions to cornerback Larry Brown and set up 2 touchdown drives in the second half. He tacked on a third as well late in the game. He was not re-signed to the team following his Super Bowl performance.
So, like, there's a lot, people say that that's the game that got Larry Brown paid. And, like, that's kind of true. Like, Larry Brown did get a big bag from the Raiders the next offseason and then proceeded to play 12 games over 2 years for the Raiders and only 16 more NFL games. But he was, like, legitimately good that year. He had 6 interceptions and 2 pick sixes that season. Like, he was at 26. He was coming into his own. He wasn't just some buster that Neil O'Donnell made famous. But Neil O'Donnell made him more famous.
Yeah, it's true.
So that is a fact. So we'll talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit later on in the program as well. But I wanted to start here and talk about Patrick Mahomes because it's always fun to talk about Patrick Mahomes. And I noticed in the show rundown yesterday, inside baseball here, but we don't script necessarily the show. We got the broad strokes outlines of the things that we're going to say and the things that we're going to discuss. But we don't necessarily script the program.
Oh, is that how you do it?
That's how I do it.
Oh, okay.
I
have a document with every single word I've said the entire this exact back and forth right now. I have this scripted out.
See,
that's what's on my computer right here.
I kick it from my head, man. I can do that. No disrespect. That's just how I am. But it's a collaborative.
I'm like Ron Burgundy. I need the teleprompter.
It's a collaborative effort. And one of the notes that Brendan put into the rundown yesterday was something that I found really interesting, and I wanted to spend more time on it today. The idea that the version of Josh Allen and the Bills that we saw this season was probably the best version of Josh Allen we have seen to date. And I would agree with that point for certain, because this is the most risk averse version of Josh Allen. This is the version of Josh Allen that learned, hey, like, I can be really good without like taking huge chances, without putting the ball at risk, without turning it over a bunch. I can still be really, really good in the confines of playing a little bit more ball control. So I do. I think that that 2024 Josh Allen, which sounds like he's going to win the MVP. Like the betting markets on that has shifted a little bit.
Have they?
Well, at least one of them did.
Wow.
Now I can't swear that that's still the case, but
I really thought Lamar would be a lock.
I kind of thought Lamar was going to win it, but I do think that there was a little bit of a shift back towards Josh Allen. So I think there's still some intrigue, and that might just be, stirring the pot for the sake of, drawing some more money on a dead futures market. But like, it wouldn't surprise me if he won, right? Like, he's probably going to be the runner-up. Great year.
Yep.
Best version of Josh Allen. But you also noted, Brendan, and this is not me, like, I'm not like picking at you. This is not interrogation. We're not shining a bright light. If you're watching on video, you can see we have not dimmed a harsh spotlight on Brendan here.
Today I walked to the office and Dan said, wow, you're stupid, huh?
Yeah. I do that every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not new. I'm just mentioning it. Yeah.
So, that you don't think this is the best Chiefs team of this current dynastic run, and I'd certainly agree with you there. But you also said that you don't, in your opinion, this is not the best version of Patrick Mahomes.
That is indeed my opinion.
And I want to hear why you think that, because my opinion is this is the best Mahomes we've ever seen. And so I want to hear the counterpoint first. I wanted to get from you, what version of Mahomes do you think was better? And why don't you think this one is, why don't you think what we're seeing from 2024 in Mahomes and now into these playoffs is the best version? And how much of what the best version is encompasses what's around him in your evaluation.
No, I think that plays a major role in it. And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, Mahomes is actually the worst quarterback in this matchup or anything. Let me see a little Wentz in the first half. No, I mean, I think he's been incredible.
Yeah, they'll change of pace. They'll never see it coming. The old razzle dazzle.
Carson Wentz might just like turn into dust. Like he might catch the snap and just kind of die.
Andy Reid looked down the bench. Wentz, you're in.
Even Carson Wentz. Me?
No, coach. No,
me?
man.
Who? Me?
I'm good.
I just want my ring, bro.
I'll hold the clipboard.
Yeah, Mark Sanchez eating a hot dog on the Jets bench. That's Carson Wentz in the Super Bowl. So this is the most efficient version of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it really is like death by 1,000 paper cuts, except instead of the old school, like either the old school NFL, we're just going to run for 4 yards in a cloud of dust, or the way that the Chiefs did it with Alex Smith, because Smith was a more limited passer than Mahomes is, where it was just check down, check down. Mahomes doesn't really check down. Mahomes is just throwing shorter routes. It is, and again, to use the phrase I used a couple times recently, brutally efficient. I mean, there's just no way to really slow it down. And honestly, I think it's a really good matchup against an Eagles defense that is willing to allow one thing: underneath passes. Like that is built into Vic Fangio's defense. They will give you passes underneath. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are more than willing to do that. We're going to have like Bill Walsh 1979 offense out here of throwing underneath with these timing routes. Yeah, true.
Give me some split backs.
Yeah, Andy Reid's going to go back into his early Mike Holmgren playbook. You know he's got it in his office at One Arrowhead Drive. And we're going to get some real old school West Coast stuff. I don't think this is a bad version of Mahomes. I think the very best version of Patrick LeVon Mahomes II is the 2022 Super Bowl 57 version, the team that the first time beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. The reason why, in one season, Patrick Mahomes went from one offense, which was built largely around Travis Kelce, who was still great in 2022, but was also largely built on the downfield Tyreek Hill offense. And over the course of one season, not only led his team back to the Super Bowl with a better team than that 21 group, won a Super Bowl, which that 21 group couldn't do, or the 20 group for that matter, and did it while winning the MVP and putting up the best statistics in the entire NFL. I don't remember if he led the league in passing yards or touchdowns that year.
Both. He led the league in both.
So with essentially a completely new philosophy offensively, led the league in passing touchdowns, led the league in passing yards. I assume led the league in passer rating. I don't have that in front of me. I assume
did not lead in rating, but did lead in QBR.
Led in QBR, led the league in EPA per play, led the league in total EPA, led the league in success rate. With a brand new offense and, to be kind, a bunch of wide receiver threes. Like, I like Juju Smith-Schuster a lot. If you want to say, hey, Juju's a wide receiver 2 in most offenses, okay, fine. At least at that time. Like, his leading receiver among wide receivers had under 1,000 yards on the season. And Juju was good. Like, I'm not trying to say he was bad, but it was different than this group was. A lot of people said a lot of mean things about Orlando Brown. So I don't want to hear any revisionist history about the left tackle situation.
Sure.
Looking back on that now versus then. I think the fact that he was able to lead an offense that schematically was about 75% different than what it had been the first 4 seasons of his career as a starter, and then won an MVP and put up the best statistics of any quarterback in the NFL, where for the first time, his undisputed best target was a tight end, a Hall of Fame tight end, but a tight end with really no secondary option who was even close to as good as Tyreek Hill. That to me is the best version of it. New look, new personnel, still put up the best numbers of anybody. He has continued to evolve, which is why we now get, you might recall this, and you on the other side of this might remember Ruthless Aggression era WWE. At the end of Kurt Angle's time in WWE the first time, he had a character called the Wrestling Machine. He started wearing a mouth guard, terrifying. And his whole thing was like, I'm not going to be funny anymore. I'm just going to beat the crap out of you. That's what Kurt Angle did for like the entirety of 2005, 2006. That's what Patrick Mahomes is right now. Kurt Angle, maybe the best technical pro wrestler ever. Patrick Mahomes right now, best tactical, practical quarterback efficiency-wise in the NFL. That's who he is right now. It's not flashy, but he gets it done. I think that 22 version had the efficiency, had the flash, and had the adaptability that I don't know that we have ever seen in the NFL. I genuinely do not know if any quarterback has ever had a season like that.
That's a great argument. And it should be noted in support of your argument that the playoff run in 2022 is the only playoff run to date where Mahomes has had a quarterback rating over 100 in all of the playoff games. There were playoff games where he did not have, like, his quarterback rating in the first Super Bowl win was only 78. Now last year he didn't have to do anything against Miami. His quarterback rating was only 83.6, but he just missed in the Super Bowl. His quarterback rating was 99.3.
Yeah.
But that's the playoff run 2022, where if you want to point to one number and say, hey, this is at his best, it is also, other than including all the ones that have ended in a Super Bowl, it is the only one in which he did not throw an interception. He didn't throw a pick in 2018, but they didn't get to a Super Bowl, so he played 2 games. Hey, he hasn't thrown a pick yet this year.
He threw 2 in Super Bowl 54, correct?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
He threw 2 touchdowns and 2 picks in Super Bowl 54. That is right.
Williams,
but yeah, 7 touchdowns, no picks in the 2022 playoff run. So it's a really good argument. This is my counterpoint. This is why I think Patrick Mahomes right now is the best version that we've ever seen. Mitch Holthus likes to talk about having the answers to the test, and the Chiefs as a team always going into games feeling like they have the answers to the test. That Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo and their coordinators give them the answers to the test, and that Mahomes is such a student of the game that he's got the answers to the test. That's an analogy I've heard Mitch use when he's been on with us more than once. I think right now, Mahomes has all the answers to the test in a way that he's never had them before. I think he has had better offensive lines and better running games and better receiving cores than the ones that surround him this year. But I don't think he's ever been sharper. Like when you go back to the Brady Manning dichotomy of the 2000s, Brady was the one, once he really got rolling and got to winning routinely, and you can even go further into his career when they started winning after the 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, when they started ripping off more in the 2010s, when he was in his mid to late 30s, where it never felt like Brady made a wrong read. It never felt like he made a bad throw. It felt like everything was snap, balls out, first down. Snap, balls out, there's Julian Edelman for 10 yards. Snap, balls out, there's Rob Gronkowski for a big gain.
Chris Hogan.
Yes. Yeah. Turning guys like that, Wes Welker to Chris Hogan, to all these guys in between, turning these guys into superstars. Randy Moss was already a superstar. Yeah, he would have been a superstar with me throwing him the football. Randy Moss would have gone to the Hall of Fame if his quarterback had been literally me for 15 years.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, no kidding. Chuck it up there, dog. That's what he would have told me every time we broke the huddle. Anyhow, so Brady got to that place late in his career where he was that accurate and that decisive because he knew what was coming. Peyton Manning, I have often heard him compared, like his brain was like a supercomputer.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knew what he was going to see. He could get to the line and know exactly what it was he was going to see and what that meant about where the ball needed to go. And the ball would go there and the ball would get there accurately. It would get there with a little stank on it. This is young Peyton Manning. This is not end of career, wobbly duck, post neck surgery Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
But the supercomputer was fully assembled with Peyton Manning. I think he has a case to be the smartest quarterback who ever played the game. I think what Patrick Mahomes has now is it's the combination of Brady's steely sharpness, his accuracy, Manning's processing, and if we want to throw in another one of his peers, because neither Brady or Manning could do this, but the ability to extend plays and make plays with his legs that Aaron Rodgers had for the better part of his prime and his peak years. It's a combination of 3 of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. And right now, I think Mahomes encompasses all of those. Let me put it another way to you. Can you imagine a team throwing something at Patrick Mahomes schematically to flummox him and the Chiefs offense the way that Lou Anarumo did in the second half of the 2021 AFC Championship game? Because I can't see that happening to Mahomes anymore. I don't know what you can throw at him schematically that is going to force him into mistakes, force him into bad throws, or confront him with something that he can't figure out a solution to. You set what he's surrounded by aside. You set the history that's been made or on the verge of being made aside. I don't think there's anything right now that Mahomes isn't prepared for, doesn't have an answer for. This truly feels like as close to unstoppable as I would say a quarterback can be. I would never say anyone is unstoppable because everybody's human, but this is as close to unsolvable, maybe a better way to put it, for a defense as I think I've ever seen a quarterback. And that's from years of assembling the supercomputer and putting all of that data together and being able to process it and having the superior athleticism to make the plays needed to be made in any scenario against any defense. That's the version of Patrick Mahomes I think we have right now. That's why I think it's the best version.
It's just very obvious how lazy people are around football media, and especially if you're not like really in the trenches when it comes to breaking these guys down. I mean, you remember the comparison of Mahomes to a former player when he came out. Who was it to? Brett Favre, right? Crazy gunslinger. He's going to throw a ton of touchdowns. And that's the wrong Packers quarterback we compared him to, because he's much. There's a lot of prime Aaron Rodgers, for really McCarthy era Aaron Rodgers in Patrick Mahomes' game. The arm slot is different, but in terms of how he likes to throw, the sort of patterns he likes to throw, the decisiveness and accuracy with which he throws. And then it became, it's just because he's got a big arm. Like, Joe Burrow is the cerebral quarterback. Now, that is, for Burrow, like, in a vacuum, true. People tried to compare him to Brady after they beat the Chiefs. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, the next Tom Brady is Joe. He's actually, in terms of the way he sees the game, way more like Peyton Manning than he is Tom Brady. Now,
I would agree with that.
He doesn't have the arm of either of them, but that's kind of the way he sees the game. So it became, you get Mahomes' physical skill, but Burrow's got the brains. I mean, he is very smart, but so is Patrick Mahomes. He's actually incredibly smart. He's got a great mind for football, especially for someone who didn't get born into football obsession. I mean, he said it before, I played Madden. I played in high school, but
this isn't like Peyton Manning where your dad was a quarterback
and you grow up obsessing about football, because there are plenty of those guys. Patrick Mahomes admittedly is not one of them. He's I liked to play, and I also like to play basketball. I feel like it was one year on because the Chiefs played a couple times on Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken, at least once. I seem to remember, maybe I'm confusing games here, but I do remember Patrick Mahomes being I didn't always watch a lot of football on TV when I was a kid, but I remember the Thanksgiving games. That's the kind of guy we're talking about here. And yet he's got this brilliant mind for it, and he always knows when he can test things, where he should go with the ball, when it's time to push it, when it's time to hold back. And are there mistakes with some of that processing? Sure, but far less often than you see from even other great quarterbacks.
I just think this is the smartest, the sharpest, the most prepared version of Patrick Mahomes. And you look at another team's defense, and they've got good pass rushers, or they got a couple of good cornerbacks, and it's I don't think it matters. Mahomes will figure out. He'll find the bruise and he'll press on it for 60 minutes. He'll find the open spaces in the field and he'll exploit it ruthlessly. The ball will get where it needs to go. Even the incomplete passes Mahomes threw, he had one screen where he turfed it to Xavier Worthy. Didn't get it all the way there on essentially a long handoff. There was the incomplete pass down the field to Hollywood Brown. That was a dime. And Christian Benford, before he got knocked goofy in a very scary play, made an awesome defensive play on the ball. Even the incomplete passes from Mahomes are seeds and where they need to be. He was as accurate as I think we've ever seen him in the AFC Championship game. And I just think that there's nothing that the Eagles can throw at him that he won't have some kind of solution for. Now, if they just win at the line of scrimmage all day and get a bunch of pressure and sack him 7 times, okay. Sometimes that's Jimmy's and Joe's. But X's and O's, you're not beating Mahomes. I don't think there's an X's and O's way to beat this guy right now. That's why I think it's the best version of him. Because I think even early in his career, there were things that you could slow him down with. There were things that you could frustrate him with over time. I think Mahomes is ready for anything, and I think he'll be more than ready for 2 Sundays from now. We'll take a quick time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back with What is Wrong with You next. It's time for another round of What is Wrong with You here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 new stories competing to take down our Monday winner. Sister Act a Fool. Great name, Paul, in the YouTube live
Shout out,
comments.
Paul. That's great.
The 2 Florida sisters in their 60s who got in a fight over the eulogy at their dad's funeral. The older sister did not mention the younger sister's daughter in the course of the eulogy, and the 2 came to blows. So that is our current champion. Spencer, you've got a story today. Give it to us.
Yeah, we're going to go back to our favorite state, Florida. A driver in DeLand has been arrested after he allegedly shot another driver who honked at him for driving slowly.
Natural reaction.
Daniel Duarte, 22 of Orlando, was arrested over the weekend by DeLand Police Department and charged him with 2 counts of aggravated assault with intent to commit a felony and 1 count each for discharging a firearm in public / missile into a vehicle and direct / discharge of a firearm from a vehicle. Police say the victim and his friend were driving on North Woodland Boulevard around 2 a.m. Saturday morning and approaching New York Ave when they came upon a red car traveling slowly in front of them. The victim told police that the red car was moving unusually slow. When they honked at the car several times, the driver of the red car He then pulled into a parking space as the victims passed and fired several rounds at the victim's vehicle. At least 2 bullets struck the victim's car, including one that hit the passenger's clothing, but did not injure either passenger or driver. Around 13 hours later, police tracked down the red car and arrested him with assistance from the Volusia Sheriff's Office. Police said a handgun was observed in plain view within his car. DeLand police say it looks like a road rage incident.
You don't say.
No kidding.
Glad they're on the case.
I would have probably hidden the gun, but that's just me.
Yeah, built different, I suppose. For my story, we're going to Savannah, Georgia. We meet Sylvester Franklin, who wanted to buy a drill. So naturally, he went on AliExpress and ordered a drill. And what they sent him back, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, they sent him a picture of the drill that he ordered. Here's our gentleman looking very dapper in his black leather hat and nice ice out cross and denim jacket, looking like he's going to get on a motorcycle and do some cool stuff on a motorcycle later. Holding a picture of a drill, which is what they sent him instead of the drill that he ordered. He also paid,
I'd like to know how much he paid for it.
Well, he would go on to say that he paid $22.47 for a pressure washer, and they sent him a screw instead.
Well, I'd also like to point out, why is this guy buying from AliExpress and expecting not to get ripped off?
Correct.
Listen, man,
This is
talked about Hakeem Olajuwon, totally authentic jersey that came from AliExpress. Totally legit.
I have an RG3 jersey that came from there.
WTOC Investigate started looking into AliExpress and found the company is a subsidiary of Alibaba, sometimes referred to as the Amazon of China. The
You mean went on Wikipedia and looked at it? What the heck?
The website has a D- rating from the Better Business Bureau. And in 2024, the state of Georgia's Consumer Protection Division received 3 complaints against the company. Franklin is trying to get his money back from AliExpress and trying to get a charge back from his bank without any success. He says he only spent around $40. So, okay, he spent $22 on this pressure washer, which means he spent $18 on what, again, when you look at the picture, that's pretty snazzy drill.
Yeah, that's not something that's going to be.
My man thought, man, I'm getting all that for $18.
It's a
Let's
steal.
go.
I got the deal of a lifetime.
Nah, man. Like, you got to understand, like when you order a jersey from AliExpress, you understand that it might come with the wrong number. You might order a Patrick Mahomes jersey and you might get Travis Kelce's nameplate on the back and number 51 instead. And instead of Chiefs on the front, it says Broncos. Like, you're just going to have to, you order something like that. Maybe the logo has boobs. Like, you just have to understand that's like the risk you run.
In fairness, though, the same thing could happen from Fanatics.
Yes, very true. That's why people do the AliExpress thing.
Side note here, I got that shirt I was telling you guys about, and I opened it yesterday, and I was like, let me just inspect it to make sure that it wasn't. That
ruined by Fanatics.
I literally had to inspect it to make sure that it said playoffs Commanders on it.
Great quote from Sylvester Franklin. Quote, "This is not good. This is real bad. All this is bad. You know what I mean? Don't scam nobody. I don't like to get scammed because you spend your money, you want to get what you paid for." Amen, Mr. Franklin. Also, just try going to the local hardware store next time.
I picked this story to win today.
Yeah, I'm going with that story.
Paul calls him the power tool fool, which that's tough.
That is tough.
Yeah.
Does that beat Sister Act a Fool?
I'm going to say no.
No, man. They got in a fight at their dad's funeral.
Over,
crazy.
Tiny little
the
details.
Pettiest thing. That is wild. That's
in
going to be hard.
60s.
It's going to be hard to beat. We'll crown a weekly champion tomorrow. We'll crown our monthly champion on Friday on What Is Wrong With You. When we come back, Michael Swain of Fog.net. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by the great Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network covering Kansas Jayhawk athletics. You can find Michael on social media at mswain247. Check out his outstanding work at Fog.net as he joins us here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael, I still have no idea how KU lost that game on Saturday. What in the world happened?
Oh man, it was the reverse Allen Fieldhouse. Like we've seen the inverse of that so many times. In the aftermath, I was thinking back, and it's like, okay, Texas Tech in 2022. It's overtime. I looked it up. KU had 11% win probability in overtime before Ochai Agbaji made the layup, and then that huge 3-point. Everyone remembers the West Virginia game, right, in 2017, and what that entailed. It was the inverse of that, and I don't think that's happened inside of Allen Fieldhouse for KU in a long time. It was one of the worst collapses I've seen, and the thing about it is KU had the chance to put it away multiple times, and I don't think there's anybody who can get away without being criticized, right? I think top to bottom, it wasn't good enough from Bill Self, right? Times to call there's an opportunity to call a timeout, right? And you still have someone in your pocket. And he talked about it posting. Maybe you should have called timeout on I think the second inbound play. You talk about Juwan Harris missing a clutch free throw. You can talk about guys not competing, get open on an inbound play. Like, it's just stuff that you don't see from Kansas teams a lot, and I think that's what probably made it so shocking. I think for some KU fans to see a KU team that for so long has been so good executing late in the games just failed to execute like 5 out of 6 times. It's just such a difference compared to, I feel like, what we've seen from Kansas for so long.
Those guys at the podium after the game, and even Bill Self a little bit too, looked like they just watched The Ring. It was startling, and they were startled by the fact that they found a way to lose that game. But this being such a veteran team, I have to imagine their response coming tonight against UCF will be more than adequate. How do you expect this team to come out tonight following that disappointment against a team that they beat by 40+ in Orlando just a couple of weeks back?
Can I be honest with you? I'm not. I have a different feeling on that. This team has struggled with energy this year, and I think you're right. Under most circumstances, you look at a senior laden team and say, yeah, they'll be good to bounce back. I think they will bounce back. UCF's not very good. KU is still a very good basketball team. I think they're going to win, and they'll win by double digits. But I don't have that same feeling about this team, that they're just going to walk out there and play with their hair on fire. Should they? Yeah, 100%. But we've seen KU in a rivalry game on the road in Missouri lay an egg in terms of energy. You've seen them open Big 12 play at home with zero energy. I don't think they get the benefit of the doubt in terms of showing up and just saying, yeah, KU's going to show up with the right process that they're going to play this game. So, I think this is a really interesting gut check time for KU right now, because they've got this game tonight. If you want to call it a get-right game, you can. And then they go to a place where they've not won in 4 seasons, could be 5 depending on this year, in Baylor. So it's a huge moment in the season for KU, because as you saw last night, the title race is going to get interesting. Iowa State losing at Arizona. I think Houston plays Texas Tech this week. There's a lot of games going on in the next kind of 7 days that are really going to determine how the title race plays out. And I think this week for KU is so huge to get back on the horse and get some of that confidence back, because after the game, you saw a team that looked down. And I am really interested to see how they look tonight, because I don't think there's that same benefit of the doubt just based on what we've seen this year.
We're joined by Michael Swain. Nobody covers the Kansas Jayhawks better than he does, and you can find his work over at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. So the big question to follow up what you just said there, Michael, and I mean, you're spot on with it. Why? Why does this team with this talent, this coach, these expectations, why does this group struggle with energy?
I don't know. I really don't. I think we could probably get into a broader conversation about college basketball. And I think sometimes, so we can start here. Who are the guys that play with energy every single game? I'd say Floyd Badunga, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I would say KJ Adams. That's his MO, right? But even then, right, I think KJ's had his periods where he hasn't rebounded, and that's been consistent. I would say the 2 guys that are always playing their hardest are Zeke Mayo and Floyd Badunga. And I think that's undoubted. I look at some of those other guys that have been on the block. Is there that same hunger? I don't know, right? You're talking about guys that are late in their careers. You'd expect that they would have that same intensity, but the fact that they haven't, I think, is just so interesting. And I think if you look across, college basketball, I think developing cultures, if you want to use Iowa State, you can use any sort of, UConn has a very intense culture. I just don't sense that right now with KU. And maybe I'm totally off base here. Maybe I'm totally off base. But I just don't get that same sense. I think there are some guys that every single – how do you not show up in the first step? The fact that Bill Self can walk into a locker room before the TCU game and say, oh, man, this isn't right. And tell the team – this is what he told us. He told the team that, hey, I'm not going to get on you guys right now, but you guys know this isn't good enough, and I know this isn't good enough. The fact that happens with a team that is one of the most experienced in college basketball, it just gives me a weird feeling about stuff. So it's interesting. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just think this is something that things just don't necessarily feel right, and I don't necessarily know where that starts in it.
What is it going to take to get Rylan Griffin some more minutes out there? Is that an energy thing? Is that an effort thing? Because I've been banging the drum. I mean, I've told it to you, Michael, all season long. I want to see more of this guy because I think he is someone who can take the offensive production for KU to another level. He was really good for most of the game against Houston, not perfect by any means, but was really good shooting the ball for the most part. Do you think this is the turning point that gets him on the floor a little bit more? And if it's not, is it possible that we just never get to that turning point this year?
Man, I feel like we're at the third turning point, right, for Rylan's season, and I'm on the same page as you. You guys have read my stuff. Like I've been on this too, right? Rylan Griffin is doing the same amount of stuff that he did at Alabama last year, starting on a Final Four team. He's just not getting as many minutes. And if you look at the per 40 production and all that stuff, it lines up almost exactly. And I think it comes down to the 50-50 balls, rebounding, staying in front of your man on defense. I think the things that are limiting it, and watch the games, to me, it doesn't look like there is a lot going wrong with Rylan on the offense end, right? It is when you get to some of those defensive possessions and he gets beat off the dribble, or he overhelps, or there's maybe a 50-50 ball that hits off his hand and he doesn't get. Those are the things that if you're playing on a Bill Self team, right, those are the things he wants you to also excel at. And in order to be a guy that plays over 25 minutes a game, he's going to want you to do those things. I think it's a huge reason why KJ Adams plays as many minutes. Bill Self knows the faults. Watches the tape, he knows it. But what does KJ do? He competes for 50-50 balls. Yeah, he's not the best on the glass, but he offers you stuff defensively where it makes up for other people's mistakes. And those are the things that I just think Rylan is maybe lacking right now. And when you've seen his minutes shoot up, right, it's after the UCF game when he played with his hair on fire and against Arizona State, where he played really well. And for Rylan, man, it feels like it's been 2 good games and then a down game. And then he's got to build up that trust again. He's able to do it for 2 games and there's another down game. And so I think for him, it's just going to be about stacking weeks now, where can you get 4 games in a row without a down game? And that's going to come down to doing some stuff. And Bill Self has said it. Rylan can play well and not hit shots. And I think that speaks a lot about those extra things in his game that he can focus on to get some of those minutes, to then put himself in a position where, hey, you're on the floor enough where maybe if you do miss 2 shots, hey, maybe you get 2 more and you go 2 for 4 from 3. So I think it's just a continued process for him and trying to, do those extra things that Bill Self really wants you to do.
A couple more questions for Michael Swain of Fog.net here on Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you're checking out Michael's work at Fog.net, and make sure you subscribe to VIP over at 24/7 as well to get all the best insight into what's going on with KU. Shifting gears to the much more important sport at the University of Kansas this time of year, football. This team is absolutely on fire right now, Michael, in terms of recruiting. 3 more players, I believe, that have been added or have announced commitments in the last 24 hours or so. A massive groundswell in terms of local recruiting, too. 6 of the top 11 players in the state of Kansas, according to your folks at 24/7, have committed to KU. This is local recruiting we have not seen maybe in the entire, recruiting service era. Can you explain to us why this 2026 class has had so many guys want to go with KU over either K-State, whether it's in-state or out-of-state options, like so many guys have over the last 20 years?
Yeah, so I think so. There's a couple of things where we can start. I think first and foremost, KU has shown that it can be a viable option for local kids. Where I think 4 years ago, when Lance Leipold took over, heck, I think even after the 2022 season, I think there were still some people that were skeptical about KU. You know, I think the way that this past year ended, I think spoke to, I think, the culture and the competitiveness and just where the program is at, where despite the bad start to the year, KU finished pretty strong, and KU is a viable option. So kids that grew up as KU fans, right? Josh Galbraith, Caden Snyder. You can even go today with Jack Utz, right? 3 guys that grew up as Kansas fans. 4 years ago, these guys had other offers, right? They're going to go elsewhere. Well, now the team they grew up rooting for is a viable option. And so it's the same kind of bump you see, right? If you go to Iowa, right? Kids that grow up Iowa or Iowa State fans, they tend to stay in state and go to those schools. Well, now KU's in a position where it could take advantage of that. And I should probably mention Nate Sims in that group as well. Now you can look at some of those other ones where a Hunter Higgins or a J.J. Dunnigan. Well, Hunter Higgins grew up a K-State fan, and J.J. Dunnigan is a K-State legacy. How did KU get those guys? I think it comes down to effort, and I think showing them that they are a priority, and that comes in a few ways, right? I think KU is being very smart with some of the revenue-sharing dollars that they're going to be able to use going forward. I think schools across the country are doing this now, where they are looking at the revenue share numbers and saying, okay, we can put this towards a high school class now, whereas before with NIL, it was very year to year, right? Now you kind of have a better idea in rev share what it's going to look like. And so you can have some stuff set aside for a high school class where you can compete with other schools. And I think that is allowing KU to walk in where situations in the past where KU was recruiting these guys just as hard as other schools. But hey, in the 2023 class, right, they recruited the in-state kids a lot. K-State had the better package. And so right now I think you're seeing KU being in a spot where the effort that they put in over years meets now the support for the football program, and they're able to be more competitive in the state of Kansas. So I think it's all these things right wrapped into one, and I think this staff has really busted their tail to be visible in the state. And it's something that other staffs haven't done, and right now they're starting to reap the rewards of that.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks at fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a VIP subscriber today. Why don't you? You can check out Michael here every Tuesday at this time on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, always a pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain. We'll take a short time out, come back, and wrap up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk right after this. Our thanks again to Michael Swain of Fog.net, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. A big local get. Josh Galbraith, the Lawrence Chesty Lion, committing to KU earlier this week. He had a lot of what you call, he was a late riser, had some helium to his prospect status as a senior. And he's locked in at KU, going to stay in town.
Also, KU legacy, that family that played at KU. The most recent recruit added to the class earlier today, tight end Jack Utz, or Oots, from Platte City, Missouri. KU and K-State should always count Kansas City kids as in-state, as far as I'm concerned, for what it's worth, from Platte City, Missouri. Here is his offer list. Just a sampling of it. Kansas State, Baylor, BYU, Colorado, okay, Big 12, Iowa State, Illinois, Indiana, Arkansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Ole Miss, Wisconsin. Yeah, the kid's pretty good get.
Yeah.
That's a really, really, really good addition.
Big 12, Big 10, SEC, everyone you want to be recruiting you.
Exactly. Spot on. And I would imagine, because KU really, 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 really needs more tight ends for the future.
Yes.
Had a bunch graduate this year. Very happy Deshaun Haneke is going to be back next season. Topeka product, the former Hayden Wildcat, former Iowa State Cyclone. Hopefully he'll be healthy, good to go for this coming season. KU needs tight ends for the future, so that shouldn't take them out of the running for Ian Premer either, or Premer. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize.
I think it is Premer, the Great Bend kid.
And it's going to be hard to get him away from K-State. Like, K-State should be considered the favorite to get him. But KU is putting up a really strong effort, and if they can land him, we are talking about probably, in terms of recruiting pedigree, probably the best local class in the history of the school.
Yeah, it's been really impressive what Lance Leipold and staff have been able to do, and I know there were some concerns about their ability to maintain momentum after missing a bowl game this last year, but I think they have set those concerns aside rather emphatically with the work that they've done on the recruiting trail. Again, thanks to Michael Swain for giving us all that insight. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll do a little more previewing of KU's game against UCF tonight. We'll also ask about Jalen Hurts. Just how good is he? Just how dangerous is he in Super Bowl 59 against the Chiefs? Of course, we will start our final hour of the show, as we always do, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. So come on back with us for one more hour of 580 Sports Talk.
The voice of Kansas online at 580wibw.com.
Let's get it. Third and final hour of a Tuesday episode of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, and Spencer Dupuis chilling with you on this Tuesday on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580wibw.com, and streaming live on YouTube on our channel 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not yet. And you can also watch us on Facebook at WIBW News. However you are engaging with the show today, we appreciate having you along. Jump into the chat on YouTube. I think it was Christopher who pointed out at the beginning of the show that calling it a live chat is a bit of a misnomer. Like, of course it's live. The show is live. Why wouldn't the chat also be live?
So,
well, I got a counterpoint to this right away. You can comment on the video later.
This is true.
Yeah.
You
and
can
it
go
wouldn't be live.
That's true. You can go back on YouTube and watch it like an archived version of the show from like 8 months ago, and you can like leave a comment that says, "Hey Spencer, cool hat," or "Hey Dan, you were wrong as hell that day, you bozo," and leave that, and we'll see those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do pop up as notifications for us. The other difference too is like if you're in a chat room, for example, you have some other sort of chat function. In some like sometimes you have to refresh to see new comments, but this is just pops right up.
Yeah, this keeps it rolling on the web browser version, youtube.com, or on the mobile app. If you are watching on YouTube, it's a great way to interact with us, but also your fellow listeners as well. It's a cool little community we've started to develop around the program, and please know that we appreciate each and every one of you. You can also text the program if you're not watching the video, you're not on the YouTube, but you want to make sure your voice is heard on the show today and any day. The text line is open, 785-272-9429. If you missed any part of the first 2 hours of the show today, you can always find the archived video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can also listen to the podcast version of the show, hour-by-hour breakdowns available both on our website, 580wibw.com, and on Spotify. That's right, everybody's favorite app that gouges musicians, also provides podcasts, and that includes us. So you search 580 Sports Talk, and we'll come up with our hour-by-hour breakdowns of the show, so you can listen to us and then like jump right on into the Rap Caviar playlist or whatever else it is that you want to listen to on Spotify.
Shout out to our new Spotify follower that's happened in the last couple of days.
Hey, yes, shout out to them. And if you are going to follow us and subscribe to us on Spotify, leave us a good review. Leave us a written review, and that helps us out as well. So get on over there to Spotify. Even if you're never, ever going to listen to the show on Spotify, get over there, subscribe to it anyway, and leave us a nice 5-star review if you would like.
What's your go-to pre-made Spotify playlist?
I don't know that I have a go-to pre-made.
You're talking about like the Spotify.
Like
yeah,
the,
like
the ones that have
Rap
names.
Caviar or Hot Country. Or one of
Mine's
those.
probably like Country Tailgate.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one.
That tracks. I can see that.
I don't remember if it's a Spotify playlist but we'll put music on when we got the pool going in the summer.
Mhm.
And Abby and I will be, we really get to do it last summer. Our pool time was interrupted by a new arrival, but we'll get back out. We'll get the pool back out going this summer, and we'll get, there's like a 70s soul cookout or something like that.
All right.
Some nice little like Motown vibes that's pretty good. Or there's like 90s. I don't remember the names to them all. Abby would know the names better than me. But.
I often will listen to the quote unquote radio stations. Like,
Yes.
oh yeah, okay. Here's No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age, and here's 10 more by them and 40 other assorted songs. That one, or what I don't think they call it what the actual name of the genre is. It's essentially a stoner metal playlist, which like is not me specifically, but yeah, it's essentially like Queens of the Stone Age, Caius, like that kind of stuff. I think they call it like desert rock.
It's desert rock. I've seen that one.
As much as I hate to admit it, I use the AI DJ like multiple times a week.
I mean, if it works,
it's put in a big queue of songs, except for what I'll say is like if I do it in a week, couple times, and I get through it, it'll just replay it. Like there's only so many AI playlists that they have for you.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I do it on a Monday and do it again on a Friday, like eventually I'll hit repeating. But like it gives me a good mix of songs like that I've listened to in the past or that I showed interest in artists.
Sure, that's all you can.
And like today, I went out to get lunch and I came back and Mr. Brightside popped on and I was just having a good old time in the parking lot.
Sesh.
Yeah,
there we go.
That was the anthem for this year's Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
didn't work out as well for them as it did for the last year's Michigan Wolverines.
The built-in grunge forever playlist also.
Ooh.
that gets a lot of run.
Yeah, I usually just find myself either doing custom playlists. I go back to my liked songs a lot.
Oh
yeah.
I
like a lot of songs.
I have way too many liked songs.
I do a lot of just like artist. Like I have a couple playlists that are just like Metallica or my Zach Bryan playlist or whatever.
I
I'm
need
a big
to go
album
through
guy too.
when I
I love listening albums from front to
I'm
back.
a big album guy.
When I just had MP3s, I used to have assorted okay, these are my favorite songs by Queens of the Stone Age. These are my favorite songs by Soundgarden. These are my favorite songs by Pearl Jam or whatever. And I always thought I would do that on Spotify. And the library is just so big, you just never really get around to it. Kind of makes music impermanent a little bit because you can just flip to the next thing. Forget about the old thing as quickly as you stumbled upon it as the new thing.
I have 2,981 songs in my liked songs.
I only got like 300.
That's a lot of variety. I like that.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because I will I can scroll my liked songs and remember okay, I was adding all of these songs when this was going on.
Yeah. Also, I was on Spotify. It does it by when you do it.
Right. So
the
you
further
remember, back you go,
yeah,
you remember. Okay, I was really listening to this particular Jay Electronica song a lot during COVID.
Yes. Here's where I got dumped. I had a lot of emo music.
2020.
This is when I was listening to The Suburbs by Arcade Fire every single day.
I will say, as much as I hate that life is just controlled by algorithms that a bunch of nerds put together that just control how your brain works at this point, they do get it right sometimes. I heard on my way home from I think it was on my way home from Maryville last Wednesday, coming back from Northwest Missouri State and Washburn's games up there. Heard Authority Zero's cover of Mexican Radio come on. Oh my God. Maybe my favorite cover ever. It's so good.
There was a band I loved that I don't think anybody else ever heard of, but they were called Double Drive, and they did a cover of Mexican Radio. It was
great song.
Hidden track at the end of one of their albums. You had to sit through 10 minutes of silence on the last track. And remember when hidden tracks were a thing?
I do. I remember very well.
Yeah. Their cover of Mexican Radio is really, really good. Double Drive's good. I wouldn't call them a new metal band, but definitely an alt rock band.
Okay. All right.
Of the early 2000s, put out a couple of albums that I really, really liked. I should listen to them some more. Anyhow, I don't know how we got started talking about that. Podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. Yeah, while you're looking for all of these obscure bands that we just named and not obscure bands that we just named. 580 Sports Talk. We are on Spotify. Still to come this hour, like I said, we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. We'll get into KU UCF, but we are going to start the hour with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We began with this cool note. We just mentioned this guy on the show yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
In fact, it was yesterday on the show. We were talking and remembering Kai Thomas, the outstanding running back at Topeka High, the all-time rushing leader in Topeka history, and the number 2 rusher in Kansas State high school football history, behind only D'Angelo Evans of Wichita Collegiate. The class of 2020 Topeka High Trojan, the former Minnesota Golden Gopher, Kansas Jayhawk, and Kent State Golden Flash, has 1 year of college football eligibility left, and he's going to spend it where it all began, right here in Topeka as a Washburn Ichabod. Being widely reported. Rick Peterson's got a great story on it at topsports.news you can read about with quotes from Kai. Kai Thomas is going to play at Washburn in the 2025 season and will finish off his college career as an Ichabod. Played for Kent State last year, which, I mean, his reward is in heaven just for enduring that season alone. They went 0-12. If you missed Kent State football this last year, consider yourself lucky. It might have been one of the worst college football teams in history. But Kai Thomas was the team's leading rusher and managed to average over 4 yards a carry on the season. And when you are on a lousy team like that, that is not the easiest thing to manage. 549 yards on 135 carries and a touchdown. He also played at Kansas briefly in 2022, scored a pair of touchdowns in the Liberty Bowl.
Yes, he did.
Was the MVP in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in 2021 at Minnesota after redshirting a year as a Golden Gopher. He led Minnesota with rushing and rushing touchdowns as a redshirt freshman and was the bowl game's offensive MVP. It has been quite a ride for Kai Thomas in his college career, and he will finish it with Coach Zach Watkins and the Washburn Ichabods this coming fall. Could not be happier for Kai to get a chance to play at home. Could not be happier for the Ichabods to get a player who's going to help them. Now, I think to expect him to come to Division II and rush for 1,800 yards and win the Harlan Hill, I think that's a little far-fetched, but he's got some juice and he can help this Washburn football team that really could use a veteran at the running back spot. I'm super excited to see what he does and super excited to continue to follow his career. One of the great athletes I've ever covered in all my years of covering high school athletics and all the different places I've gotten to do it. Kai Thomas is one of the best I've ever seen, and I'm super excited for this.
Yep, super happy for Kai, for his family, for the Topeka High community, for Topeka as a whole. Just so cool that he's going to be back home for this final season. And you're 100% right, Dan. He's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. And I think he's going to play a really big role on this team that could really use a veteran running back, a veteran offensive weapon going into this year with a bunch of guys graduating, including in that running back room. So I am super fired up about Kai being back, and I think this is going to be such a good fit. I'm excited. I am so excited that we've got one more year here in Topeka with Kai Thomas. His dad was a football player at Washburn as well. So there you go. All right, first headline for me. Speaking of guys who are returning home on the gridiron, somewhat anyway, one of the best Jayhawks of recent memory, Joe Dineen, is returning to the coaching staff. It was announced earlier today, or reported earlier today, but it's going to happen. This has been rumored for a little while now, that Joe Dineen, as well as Matt Burkett, are going to be defensive analysts this year for KU football. Dineen was an All-American linebacker for the Jayhawks, part of the long line of phenomenal Dineens who played at KU, former Free State Firebird. Excellent college football player. He has most recently been the outside linebackers coach at Purdue the last 2 seasons. Also spent some time at Illinois working with former KU linebacker Kevin Kane, where he was an assistant at Illinois for a little bit. Burkett, by the way, he had been the DB's coach at USF and James Madison in recent years. Both are going to take over as defensive analysts this season. I would imagine if Joe wants to, it will not be long, whether it's in Lawrence or elsewhere. He'll have another on-field job in the near future, but super happy for him. Great guy. And man, he was so good. KU had 3 guys who made it at least 2 training camp / practice squads / still competing at a high level in the NFL on teams that won like 2 games a year. Joe Dineen, Daniel Wise, and Dorrance Armstrong was as good of a trio in the front 7 as any team in the Big 12 had for the 2017 season. Like, those guys were awesome. And KU sucked, which was really unfortunate. Peyton Bender, yeah. So very happy for Joe Dineen that he's back at KU.
Yeah, good for Joe. And that's a family that bleeds KU, except for siblings
Jax
that went to K-State. But yeah, that's a big KU family, and I'm sure it's great for a lot of people to see him back in Lawrence.
Can I add one quick point onto that? Because Michael Swain mentioned it when we talked to him last hour about KU's recruiting in the state of Kansas right now, that it is picking up guys who, like Caden Snyder from Salina Central, grew up a KU fan. That Joshua Galbraith, KU legacy from Lawrence, KU fan. Like guys who want Jack Utz from Platte City, KU fan. Guys who wanted to play at KU and not only actually got an offer, which go listen to some of the guys who are from Lawrence and ended up at K-State in recent years. And when they say, yeah, they didn't even look at me. Nice to actually offer those guys, but that it's actually a real alternative and an option now if you want to play close to home. It's not just Mizzou or K-State, specifically the latter. Like, oh, yeah, I can actually go play at KU and we're going to win and it's going to be relevant and we're going to be on TV and people can see me and the stands will be full. That's such a big deal. When KU didn't land Jax Dineen, like, this is like the first family of KU football. Like, how does a Dineen end up at K-State and not KU? That is ridiculous. So to be able to land those guys again, it's taken years. I mean, it's taken 5 years essentially for KU, or at least 4, to get to a point where it is a viable and reliable option for students and student athletes to come play football at KU. But I'm glad that Kansas is here, and it's going to make Kansas State better in the long run for what it's worth, because I know I've seen from some K-State fans that, hey, this is bad. Like, what the hell? I like being the only team in the state that got good players. What the heck's going on here? And some were like, they're just chasing bags. Well, whatever. This is going to help K-State in the long run. I genuinely believe that, because you know what competition does? Suddenly, we need to up our game. We can't get complacent. We've got to offer more in the NIL. We've got to offer better packages. We've got to make promises. We've got to take bigger swings. This is going to help both programs long term, without question in my mind.
I think so. And it's great to see in-state kids get the opportunity to represent. And it's great to have them close to home. Like from a perspective of just wanting to see kids across the state of Kansas get the opportunity to play at the next level. It's cool to see them put it on for their home state, no matter whether that's red and blue or purple and gray. So it's interesting to have seen the pendulum swing towards Kansas for this next class. Wouldn't be surprised to see it swing back to K-State the year after that, or maybe this is going to be something long-term for KU. But yeah, it certainly has a level of intrigue, I think, and that's exciting stuff. Spencer, give us a headline.
Yes, coaching news. The Jerry Jones-led Cowboys are continuing to run it back, bringing familiar people to the staff. They are bringing Matt Eberflus to be the defensive coordinator. He was the linebackers coach for the Cowboys from 2011 to 2017. So Brian Schottenheimer's found his DC. Speaking of DC, Cliff Kingsbury is going to stay in DC as OC.
I like what you did there.
Yeah. Despite interest from the Saints for their head coaching position. He said he was going to wait till after the Commander season ended to interview for any jobs. And speaking of the Saints job, last night the Saints interviewed Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore for that position in Philly last night.
Okay, I thought that interview was going to happen yesterday. I just was a couple hours early.
Yeah.
Good for Cliff waiting until the season was over. I respect that. This is just further proof, though. The Cowboys did not need to do this.
No.
Yeah.
They did not need to make a spaz hire like that. I don't get it. Also, have you ever heard of a staff Like maybe a Dennis Allen staff, but at least players really liked Darren Rizzi, his special teams coordinator. But a staff less inspiring than one led by Brian Schottenheimer and Matt Eberflus. Like,
No,
can you
man.
I
imagine
audibly, when I saw this morning, I just started cracking up because I'm like, Matt Eberflus is not a leader of men.
No, not at all. Go ask some of those Bears players what they think of Eberflus as a leader. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny what happens to the Cowboys from here. Like that is just such an uninspiring, and they still have some really high level talent too, but it is such an uninspiring football team.
The rumor is Micah Parsons wants out.
You've got to be so happy if you're the New York Giants, right? Like you are going through the worst era of your franchise's history, but you've got a team in your own division that's a bigger tire fire than you are, so you can kind of glide under the radar a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Aside from the whole Saquon's playing for a Super Bowl thing.
Yeah, that stings. That keeps you under the microscope a little bit. It's like, wow, man, this Saquon Barkley is like incredible. Why haven't we seen him on this stage before? Oh,
well, he played for the Giants.
One other real quick headline to get to, because it dovetails with a headline that we didn't get to earlier this week, but I wanted to get to. Virginia Tech hired a new defensive coordinator. Sam Cephas, who had been the Arizona Cardinals linebackers coach, is going to leave the pro ranks for the college ranks. Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry had some quotes, really complimentary, really excited about Cephas coming in. Arizona finished in the top 10 in the NFL this season, both yards per play allowed and yards per rush allowed. And so did a pretty nice job, given that there are not a lot of like stars on the Cardinal defense.
Sure.
So Cephas, former Wisconsin graduate assistant, also has experience as a defensive coordinator in small college football at UW-Platteville and Wofford. The reason I bring this up, like I said, dovetails with another story. Defensive coordinators in college football are getting paid a lot more. This is the new sort of market inefficiency is, well, let's just go get a really good coordinator, a really good play caller.
Uh-huh.
You saw Ohio State do this last year
Kelly.
with Chip Kelly, where they said, we're going to make Chip Kelly an offer he can't refuse to come and be our offensive coordinator. Yes, we know he is a head coach, also in a Power 4 league, but we're going to give him a similar bag to call our plays. And that proved to be a pretty good expenditure for Ohio State. You have seen Florida State do that with Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn leaving his head coaching post at UCF. He's going to be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Coordinators, the best ones, are going to be getting an obscene amount of money. To wit, Jim Knowles, who just coordinated the Ohio State defense that won a national championship, has been hired away from Ohio State by Penn State for a 3-year contract that will pay him over $3 million a year. He is believed to be the first coordinator in college football to make a base salary of at least $3 million.
Well, I will say he's coming from Ohio State, right?
Yes.
Did you also see that their athletic department was like $16 million in debt, despite them winning the college football?
So I did see that. The difference is not a single dollar of money going to those coaches is from like actual athletic
The general
revenue.
fund.
Yeah. Like, I don't know who Ohio State's boosters are. They have a gigantic alumni base, but like that's all donated money. Just like buyouts. Like the school never pays a buyout. Your rich uncle Moneybags is paying the buyout for these guys. So like that's where money comes from. I think hiring away Jim Knowles is really, really smart. I mean, it sounds like Ohio State didn't make a comparable offer, and that's why he left, which is crazy to me, to be honest with you.
The reporting from ESPN says they would have made him the highest paid coordinator in the country. Michigan's Wink Martindale and LSU's Blake Baker are both set to earn $2.5 million next season. So we can infer that the offer was ahead of that, but probably didn't get close to the $3.1 million that Penn State was offering. And Knowles is a Pennsylvania guy. He's from Philadelphia. So a chance to return to his home state. But that is the new market inefficiency now. That is what you are going to see more and more of is Power 4 coordinators. And look, around here, we're familiar with that because who's Penn State's offensive coordinator? Andy Kotelnicki, who left KU to become the offensive coordinator at Penn State. Colin Klein left K-State for Texas A&M, SEC money. And the thought has always been, well, you need to take that job to position yourself to be a head coach. If you want to be a head coach someday, you need to take a bigger offensive coordinator gig at a bigger school or something along those lines.
Right.
Well, now the bigger school is just going to go poach the best coordinators and pay the most money to the best coordinators. That is where you're going to see the arms race start to show itself in a way that I don't think we've seen it really reveal itself over the course of college football. We'll take a timeout, wrap up our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, Jalen Hurts has gone to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Is he any good? We'll ask next on 580 Sports Talk. .532 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer with you. I was listening to Bomani Jones's podcast. He does a podcast 3 times a week, and I'm a frequent listener. And he was talking about the NFC Championship game and talking about this Eagles team that the Chiefs are going to face in Super Bowl 59 2 Sundays from today. And his line was something to the effect of the Eagles' greatest weakness as a team might be Jalen Hurts, but I'm not sure that Jalen Hurts is a weakness. I tend to agree with that assessment where, like, nobody is going to, we have had in past years, people try to argue going into big games. Like, they do the tail of the tape matchup. Who's got the advantage? And there have been people who have gone on ESPN and Al Gore's internet and all of these places and dared to say that there were teams that had a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. We've seen this. I think even somebody did that with the 49ers last year. Said, no, I'll argue that Brock Purdy's better than Patrick Mahomes. Whoever that was definitely has a favorite flavor of glue. Like, nobody's going to do that this time around.
Remember when Steve Young went on TV and said that Patrick Mahomes could learn something from Mac Jones? I do.
I don't.
I do.
That happened?
Good. That's good stuff.
Yep.
That's
I believe on Monday Night Countdown.
That's so
Could
funny.
learn something from Mac Jones.
Like how to hold a clipboard?
How to get fat when you move to your hometown?
Nobody is going to do that with Jalen Hurts these next 2 weeks. Nobody is going to sit on television and say, yeah, Jalen Hurts is better than Patrick Mahomes. I think we're probably at the point with Hurts, and the thing I've always appreciated about him, and like I said earlier, I've been higher on Hurts than you guys have been throughout like all season. And just generally, I've been a bigger Jalen Hurts fan than most people. I do think we are getting to the point where he kind of is who he is, which is not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. An 18-5 touchdown interception ratio this year, rushed for 14 touchdowns and 630 yards on the ground this year. He is a dual threat quarterback in the truest sense of that word. I don't know that there's a whole lot more ceiling for Jalen Hurts to get to, but I think what he has become is a fine quarterback, and now he's got 2 NFC championships to prove that. But like we talked about at the beginning of the show, he's also not a guy I don't think you go into a game and think, oh, man, we have to stop Jalen Hurts. Oh, man, Jalen Hurts is going to beat us. We can't let Jalen Hurts beat us. Some of that is because his supporting cast, particularly this year, Saquon Barkley gets a little bit more of that particular attention. But while I like Hurts, I like him as a player. I like him more than you guys seem to like him. I guess we'll start there. Have your opinions on Hurts evolved a little bit this year, or do you feel like he is stagnated a little bit as a player, as a passer, as a quarterback?
As a passer, I think he's improving. I say this because he went in those 2 playoff games and he only had 131 and 128 passing yards. Then he played the Commanders, who not a great defense. He had 246 passing yards. So I was thinking that they were going to win that game, and he was going to have under 200 passing yards. I'm like, that's crazy. But I think when he's healthiest, he's the best, but he gets banged up way too often.
See, I actually disagree. I think Jalen Hurts is the exact same player today that he was at Super Bowl 57. I don't think Jalen Hurts has changed one bit. I think he's got a better offensive coordinator than he had a year ago with Brian Johnson. We talk about how Russell Wilson runs the Russell Wilson offense.
Yeah.
And, how many other quarterbacks? The Bengals, they run the Joe Burrow offense. They're going to play 5 wide, and they're going to take snaps out of the shotgun, and they are not going to use motion. And why? Because Joe says he doesn't like that, and they're going to run the Joe Burrow offense. Jalen Hurts runs the Jalen Hurts offense. The problem with the Jalen Hurts offense is it's Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma offense. Like, they run comical numbers of RPOs, and it is more effective now because they upgraded from DeAndre Swift to Saquon Barkley, and it is much more useful now in the ground game. I still don't think I think Jalen Hurts is the worst quarterback you can have where you can comfortably say my team can still win a Super Bowl. Like, I think the Eagles can win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. I think the next guy down on the list is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. That is how I would phrase Jalen Hurts.
So it's the Hurts line now.
I think it is the Hurts line. And that's like slightly above the Dalton line. I've retooled this since you and I talked about it the other day, Spencer. I think that is slightly higher than what the Dalton line was, which was the line for a guy who's not just a regular starter, but a legit franchise quarterback. But I think anything worse than Jalen Hurts, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl, because I think they have to spoon feed his passes way too much. I just think he is limited in what he's able to do. Like, he's not, he's not a Burrow or a Mahomes in terms of how they read a defense. I don't think he's, give me an example of a current guy who gets the ball out quickly, like a prime Aaron Rodgers in terms of sack avoidance, get the ball out quickly, or a Brady or anything like that. Yes, he does move around. He's not actually a great scrambler. There's plenty of advanced data out there. I think,
he's much more of a designed runner.
Yes, which is fine. Like, that's extremely useful, and it's hard to defend. But for the speed and size he has, he's actually pretty bad as a scrambler. Like, he's not functionally mobile as a thrower. It's really strange, honestly.
He gets sacked. Like, you think about Hurts and you look at his rushing statistics and you see that he is fast. Like, right now, he's not running at 100%. He doesn't look like he's at full speed because he's had that wonky knee. He's been sacked 38 times this season. And then you throw the playoffs in there, he has been sacked 11 times in this postseason.
Okay, so I'm glad you bring up the sack stat, because I've got them in front of me right here, too. Every single player who was sacked more often than Jalen Hurts this year had a worse offensive line than the Eagles. And, you could argue the 10 quarterbacks who were sacked more had, 9 of the 10 worst offensive lines in football. Spencer, your Commanders, good offensive line?
Median.
Like mediocre kind of ish?
Yeah.
Eagles, best in football.
Oh, yeah.
Jaden Daniels is number 6 on those lists. Caleb Williams, need I say more? CJ Stroud, need I see more? You want to talk about Geno Smith's offensive line, Dan?
Oh, they are a war crime.
Yes, very, very bad, very, very gross.
Yes.
Like, that's what we're talking about. The Eagles are the best line in football. This is why we say that sacks are often a quarterback stat. Not always, but often. And I think in Jalen Hurts' case, they are. I think the passing stuff is like too scripted and too obvious, and it works because Hurts has enough gifts physically, and he's throwing to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, that helps a whole lot. So I think he's good. I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I don't know that I would want him starting for my team if I had like a 10 through 20 offensive line as opposed to a top 2 offensive line.
So,
because I think that sets up kind of everything they do.
Hurts got sacked on 9.5% of his dropbacks this season. That is a absurd number. Mahomes, for the record, this year was sacked on 5.8% of his dropbacks. Mahomes for his career has been sacked on 4.2% of his dropbacks. Hurts has been sacked on 7.2%
That's crazy.
of his dropbacks. That's a pretty significant difference. And so, yeah, I think Hurts is a little bit of a Rorschach test. You can look at him and you can see what you want to see. You can see the high completion percentage, the orchestration of the offense, the ability to spread the ball around to 2 elite wide receivers. I think Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are elite wide receivers, and Dallas Goedert's one of the best tight ends in the game, and they've got a good rapport. Goddard was really good in the NFC Championship game. And the ability to, if you pay a little too much heed to a running back like Saquon Barkley, he can keep it on an RPO and he can do damage on the run because he does have some open field ability. There is some danger there with Jalen Hurts. But like you said, a lot of it is like the bare necessities, the ABCs. And if you make him go from 101 to like an advanced course in trying to figure out what the defense is showing him and showing him some different looks and showing him some different pressures and some 5-6 man pressures, that's where Jalen Hurts gets a little less effective.
Yep. Agreed. Completely.
And so that's what the Chiefs are going to have to throw at him 2 Sundays from now. So end of the day, Jalen Hurts, good quarterback. I would say yes. Is he a quarterback that I feel like going into a game, he's going to be the reason his team wins or loses? No. And now the Eagles have built the structure around him where he doesn't have to be. But that's sort of where I land with him. Like, he's in a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Decent quarterback in a good spot. We'll take a timeout.
Flip quarterbacks. Flip teams. Who wins?
The team with
Mahomes as an Eagle.
The team with Jordan.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say Mahomes as an Eagle or Hurts with the Chiefs. I would take the Eagles by 3 touchdowns.
I think I would.
I would say that the game is they're going to like call mercy rule if you flipped them around. I think the Eagles have a better roster, but I think the Chiefs are better coached and have a better quarterback.
Yeah, no, not 100%.
Better coached really in every department.
We'll think of some different ways to say exactly that over the next 2 weeks. We can promise you that. But we'll also come back after this timeout. But first, a word from my friends at Great Life here in Topeka. It's a new year. It's a new you. New Year Fitness special going on at Great Life right now. If you are a Great Life member and you refer a friend to become a Great Life member, you and that friend get up to 32% off of your membership. So now's a great time to join. The snow is going to finally start to melt, so the golf courses are going to get back to being playable, and the Great Life golf courses are in fantastic shape. 8 great fitness facilities with all kinds of amenities. There's something for everyone, and there's one near you, no matter where you are in the greater Topeka area. Go to greatlifetopeka.com for more information. Back after this, we'll talk KU Hoops next. 546 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan,
Great day of bump music.
yeah, we have.
Man.
Heat Rocks. Yeah, Alien Ant Farm a couple of breaks ago.
Had some Blue Oyster Cult, Zapier.
Just happened to line up just right because it's just random. It's just random generator.
You a big Zeppelin fan, Spencer?
Not really.
Do you know anything by Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if this was like Rush, where you had never heard anything by them.
Fair argument.
They played Rush going to break on an NFL game in the last month, and I forgot to tell you guys that.
I'm glad you recognized it.
You're sitting on your couch to the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, pointing at the TV. Hey,
Yeah.
I know that band. Oh gosh. We got some basketball tonight.
Yeah, we do.
To talk about basketball at Allen Fieldhouse. 7:00 game is on ESPN Plus. KU, UCF, and my thought initially was KU's going to be hacked off about losing the way they did on Saturday. They're going to be locked in. They're going to be ready to execute. They're going to execute at a high level. They're going to blow out this UCF team that was wholly and completely overmatched by Kansas in Orlando when the two teams played earlier this month. Michael Swain made a good point when we talked to him on our Jayhawk Weekly segment, bottom of the 4:00 hour today. KU's not been a fast starting team. KU's not been a high energy team, even at home. Now, there have been notable exceptions to that rule. The 14-0 run they started the Sunflower Showdown with. I think they started with a 15-0 run on North Carolina State when they beat them back in the non-conference. So there have been times when KU has been inexplicably flat to start games.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entirely fair criticism of this team. And one of their best energy guys is not playing. KJ Adams remains out with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a guy that you usually count on when you look at this KU team to provide some of that spark and that energy. And that won't be present in the lineup tonight. That being said, I still wouldn't want to be UCF tonight. Because I do think KU is going to come out with the mentality that we got to blow these guys' doors off. We've got to prove a point. We've got to show that what happened on Saturday, particularly in the waning seconds on Saturday, that is not us. Because lost in the unpleasantness of how that game got away, first at the end of regulation and then again in the first overtime, was that for the bulk of those 45 minutes before the second overtime, KU played great.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't play good. They played great against a great Houston team with national championship bona fides, in my opinion. So it's not like, oh, KU stinks now, or KU's bad, or KU can't do, whatever it is that they need to do to win games. They just screwed the pooch in late and close situation. And I think one way to avoid that is to not leave this one late and close. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to win handily tonight.
KU should win handily. Again, UCF is not good. Johnny Dawkins with the worst game plan, maybe of the entire year last time these teams faced. The spread earlier was 13.5 favoring KU. Have you checked it since?
I am checking it right now. Thank you for asking. The spread is currently
I am
at
also checking the
13.
same thing. Okay, so it sits at 13. I know T-Rank, Bart Torvik's numbers, he's got KU as a 12.7 point favorite. Here's how you have to frame this game. If you're me, I think if you're KU, what is more likely, that KU comes out pissed off and wants to beat the crap out of UCF, or that we see a repeat of the game against Houston? To me, it's pretty much you don't have an option. You've got to come out feeling the former, because if it's the latter and you barely get through a slog against UCF, a bad team already killed by 51 at home after that embarrassment on Saturday, you can probably say, yeah, this team ain't contending for a Final Four this year. Right. You just don't feel like they've got the juice to make a run like that. But if they come out and they do what you would expect this KU team to do, and they put up 80 points again and they win by double figures, okay, yeah, bummer about Saturday. It's a game you should have won. You had chances to win, but this is still the same team we expected. They had one night where they really, really, really sucked. That's, to me, kind of the ultimatum you have in this game. Like, there is no option that this team can come out and be flat. Like that's not how this season can possibly go. So to me, KU is going to come out and do it because I can't really imagine a world in which they don't bounce back like that. Because if they don't, then it's, as much as I hate to say it, in the final week of January, it's probably time to alter expectations in a negative way.
I mean, I feel like Michael Swain, who was our guest earlier from Fog.net 24/7 Sports, he kind of said that. He said he's altering expectations in a way.
Are they out of the Big 12 title race?
Yes. And that's fine. I'm not. And that kept coming up when I was listening to the game the other night. You know, you're going to fall 3 games behind Houston. I don't care. I do not care, to be completely honest with you. It's weird to say that as a fan of KU, but oh well, whatever. Play your best basketball in March. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's the important thing, right?
And if they are slogging through the schedule right now, but a month from today they look like world beaters, but they end up missing out on the Big 12 title by 2 games. Oh no, boo-hoo. Go to the Final Four. Go win a national title.
Yeah, it's all about the legacy of this program. It'll be written by what they do in March. They are put together to win a national title, not a Big 12 title. When you're putting together a team on the fly like this, when you have this many transfers and you're spending a lot of the non-conference and even some of the conference games trying to figure out what your rotation should look like and who should play more minutes and who looks best playing with each other. At that point, what you're about is March, and you're not about January through early March. And that's fine. That's just the world that this program lives in right now. Whereas in the past, I think it was a little bit more about also winning the Big 12. I think that the way this team was constructed means March, late March, early April was always the goal. But yeah, they've got to prove that that's still a reasonable possibility. One way to do that would be by putting a hurting on UCF tonight. Again, 7:00 tip. We'll react to it on tomorrow's show. We'll come back after this final timeout with the final word to wrap things up on 580 Sports Talk. It is final word time here on 580 Sports Talk. Spencer Dupuis, lead us off for a final word.
Yes, as I continue to dissect this Chiefs conference championship win, it becomes more clear that something that I pointed out to you guys earlier is that we can talk about it later this week on the show or early in the next week, that the mid-season acquisitions the Chiefs made, for the most part, I mean, you're not going to hit 100, you're not going to bat 100%, Uche, or however you say his name. but a lot of those guys came up big in games down the stretch of the season when they were needed. But then you look at Samaje Perine, a guy who was cut by Denver. And what did he do? He secured the win for you by making that catch. And he had only played like one other snap the entire game on offense.
Final word, Brendan.
I'm going to drink Clorox if KU loses tonight. My life is on the line, Hunter Dickinson.
No pressure.
DeJuan Harris, if you guys do not win today, I will die. So just keep that in mind. No pressure, though, but I'll be dead.
Final word for me, Patrick Mahomes, I believe, is right now reaching a version of himself that is the best we've ever seen. You can throw out the numbers from the regular season, the numbers that say that by QBR, this was one of the worst seasons of his illustrious 7-year run as the Chiefs starter. I think you can toss those things out and just watch the tape. Watch how he dissected that Buffalo Bills defense. Watch what he did to that Houston team with their great pass rush the week before. There's nothing you can show Patrick Mahomes at this stage in his career that he's not ready for. And that includes the Philadelphia Eagles. Great talents on that defense. And they might be able to make some plays man for man. Jimmy's and Joe's do make plays. But X's and O's wise, I don't think there's any stopping Patrick Mahomes. There's no one weird trick to do it. You're not going to out-scheme him. He's too smart. The supercomputer has downloaded everything. And that's why I think Mahomes is in the form that he's in and why I would expect him to have a big day against the Eagles in Super Bowl 59. We'll end it on that note today. We are back at it tomorrow for 3 more hours of 580 Sports Talk from 3 to 6. Until then, for Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.